Hi everyone. I wanted to show you how to create graphs. It may have been a long time since you created graphs in a classroom. You may have done it by hand instead of using, like a spreadsheet to do it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through a couple of graphs that you'll make for your labs and show you, how to edit them and what you should do. So let's start with the first thing. Let's say you don't have Excel. You don't have Microsoft Excel either because you don't want to pay for it, or how you have an Apple computer or just whatever, right? So the first thing you can use is you can actually use Google Sheets. So you could just go to your Google Drive and or get a Google Drive, which would require you to have a Gmail account, and you can use Google Docs and Google Sheets for free. So here's my drive, and you just tell it, oh, I want to create a new document, or I want to create it looks just like Excel. I want to create an Excel sheet, or maybe a PowerPoint that you want to create. The other thing you can do is you can go to a website called LibreOffice, and this is a free open source software. And what it does is it has Office software that looks almost exactly like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, and Apple users, you can use this as well. I believe there's another one. So for LibreOffice, you can just go to the first link, and you would just download the Open Office, and like I said, it's completely free because it's open source software, and so you can use that software. I believe the other one is called Open Office. Yeah, so go to openoffice.org and you can download Office software. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go here. But those are two free programs that you can use in case you don't have Microsoft Word or Microsoft. It's totally fine. I do most of my stuff in Google Drive. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. So in your first lab, you were supposed to collect the height and wingspan of different people, and then you were supposed to do forearm, and I believe it was forearm and hand, I think. It's a little late here, so I'm a little tired. So, okay. So let's just say, I'm just going to put in some random numbers. And we'll have, I'll show you what to do with the data that you get. And so when you are calculating a ratio, you can actually, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to do ratios, and that's totally fine. The spreadsheet can do it for you. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. So let's just, there we go. Okay. So it's actually a formula that you can use to calculate the ratio. So you're going to do equal. And what you want to do is you actually want to take the open parentheses and then click on the first height, put a backslash because it's representing division. And we're dividing the height by the wingspan. So we're going to click on the next wingspan number, and then we're going to close the parentheses so it will do that that calculation. And then we have to in order to calculate proportion, you have to do something called and percent. So you hit the and symbol, and then you do quotation marks, and then type in the colon do another quotation mark, and then we type in the and symbol again. I know this looks really complicated, but I promise you, like, you only have to do this once and then it'll calculate it for you all the way down. So then you do the open parentheses again, and we actually want to divide it by the wingspan. So we're going to click on the wingspan, hit the backslash again for division, and then click on wingspan again. And then we're going to close the parentheses, and now you've completed the formula. This is why people get paid big bucks to do calculation like finance and stuff in spreadsheets, is because look how complicated that is. So we're just going to hit enter. And I'm not going to autofill it just yet. So you can see it calculated out a 1-to-1 ratio, which makes sense because 20 divided by 20 is 1. Okay. Now we want it to calculate that ratio for all of them. We don't want to have to type in, you know, that calculation every time. So we're going to grab the corner and we're just going to drag it down, and it automatically fills it in. So what you can see here is, you know, most of these ratios are a 1-to-1 ratio, but then, you know, you might have some data that's showing you, you know, decimal points. So you can decrease the decimal point places, which I'm going to go ahead and do. And it will kind of knock it down for you. But what you can see here is you've got 0.9. So if you were to kind of round that, it would roughly be a 1-to-1 ratio. Same thing here. If you were to round that 0.97, it would be 1. So you can see that the overall trend is that you have a 1-to-1 ratio with this data. Okay, so you would do the exact same thing with the forearm. Okay, so you know, putting in random numbers here. Okay, and this is why it's important to have so much data. This is why it was important to have 30 people, because if you just do 10, if you just do like a small amount, you're not going to have as much data to work with, and it'll be hard to see the trends. So I'm gonna stop it here to kind of show you that. So we're going to put in the ratio again. So we want to take forearm, divide it by forearm and hand. Okay, then we do the and quotations, colon, quotations, and open parenthesis, forearm and hand, backslash, forearm and hand, close the parentheses, and there's, I'm gonna go ahead and tell it to autofill. Okay, so you can see that this ratio is not as clean as this one. There's not really an overall trend here. Now, like I said, this is made up data, so your data might be completely different. Okay, so now that we have our data entered, we want to create a graph. So in order to do that, you will want to highlight the information that you want to graph. So we want to graph all of this. And then we will go to Insert, Chart. So it takes a little bit for it to calculate. And now we have this, you know, this beautiful little bar graph here. And it needs to be updated a little bit. So the first thing you want to look at is this the correct chart type? Okay, so you know, you can tell whenever you select different ones, like if it's the type of chart you want. So let's look at line graph. Well, that's kind of showing a trend, right? So we have some trend there. Okay, let's try a pie chart. See, that doesn't really work for us. Okay, so that's not showing us trends. And then we'll leave it. We'll look at this bar. So you could also have a bar graph that goes this way. Okay, so this is kind of showing you, you know, a correlation here because you have blue in as height and then wingspan, and you can kind of see how they are proportional to each other in this chart. Okay, whereas if you look at the line graph, it's a little bit harder to tell that that's what you're looking at. So we're going to go ahead and keep it. And you can do a column too. I mean, it shows the same thing. So we'll go ahead and keep it as that. And what we want to do is you need to be able to label your axes. So, you know, this is the numbers that it was going with, and these are the individual people on the x-axis, and then the y-axis is your calculations. So when you go to name it, you will do that in customize and go to chart and axes titles. So we want to give it a name, right? So we want to, I mean, you can name it whatever makes the most sense. So we can say, you know, height versus wingspan. And, you know, you can play with the font and the size and you know, what color you want it to be and all that stuff. And then you go to series. And whoops, sorry about that. Axis titles. Okay. So then we'll label the horizontal axis, and we will we'll label that participants, because those were the people that you got measurements from. And then we'll label the vertical axis, so the y axis, as the data points. So the number or the measurements. There we go. That's probably a better title. Okay, and then you are you know, you're done with that. And so in order to insert it into your lab report, so for instance, right, so we have the lab report open here, and it's saying you know, construct a graph that compares the height versus wingspan. So we can go back to the spreadsheet, and we can click on the chart, and there's this row of 3 dots, and you can just say copy chart and go into your lab report. And this is why it's good to use your lab report in Google Docs as well, because it will just paste it right in there. So we can, you know, and you can just Control V or hit paste. You can either link it to the spreadsheet or you can paste unlinked. I like to unlink it just in case something happens to your spreadsheet. So, and then there you go. There's your graph. Okay. And so you can do, you know, the same thing with your, you know, your other data. So if we want to, you know, we can select this data, right? Insert chart. And then see, like, it's just like, you just don't have as much, right? Like you just don't have as an overall trend what's going on here. That's why the more data, the better. And so, yeah, so you just go in and edit everything that you need to. And sometimes it'll auto-populate it for you. So like, for instance, it took these titles and went ahead and put it in the title. It tries to like be predictive of what you're going to do, but sometimes it doesn't always, you know, have the best thing. So that's great. What about, you know, whenever you have data for multiple things? So for instance, like in lab 2, you have consumption areas that you are tracking. And I believe it's water, electricity. Oh, I need to put my units in there. Yeah, that's the other thing. Always make sure that you put like, what did you measure this in your chart, or in your table that you're creating. So electricity, we do kilowatt hours, and then I think we did trash in pounds, and then we do what else did we do? Oh, transportation in miles. So we'll put that like this. Okay, and then you were supposed to track those consumption areas for a few days. So that's our before, and then our and then make some changes, and then track your after usage. So let's say, like I said, random numbers here. Okay, you were pretty good. You were able to lower your water. Electricity stayed the same. Trash, maybe you were really you had a lot of things to throw away that, you know, those few days. So we're gonna have 20 pounds of trash, and then you lowered it. And then, you know, your transportation stayed roughly the same. Okay, so that's the data that I want you to graph in lab 2. So same thing as before, right? Highlight all of the data that you want to graph. Now, what happens if we don't highlight some things, right? Like let's say we just highlight this. So let's just take a look. So we insert the chart. Okay, you know, it roughly gives you what you want, but you can see here that the legend isn't correct. Like we don't know what blue stands for. We don't know what red stands for. So we're gonna delete this chart. So that's why it was important to highlight the entire area. So we're gonna insert chart. And now see it filled it out for you because you had that column heading. And so now you can clearly see, you know, what things did you help to reduce? What things stayed the same? You know, it gave you, you know, a title down here that you don't need to change. You just need to label your y-axis and then put your title in there. So that's how you do it. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate, reach out. There's also a ton of videos on Google and on YouTube that can show you more complicated ways to do charts, but I just wanted to give you kind of the general overview. So I hope this helped, and I will see all of you later.